Have you heard the old saying, don't judge a book by its cover? But that's what people do, right? We judge everything by outward appearances. In my experience, a great album cover can make or break the decision on whether I buy an album. So go on a journey with me as we look at some great album cover designs and talk about why I believe that you need a personal designer for your album artwork. This is Judged by the Cover. Hey guys, I'm Josh.
Hey, I'm Phil.
And this is the Judged by the Cover podcast. And as you can tell, we are in a much nicer looking location than normal.
Yeah.
Very official, wouldn't you say?
It is very official. It's very, it's brand new. We're in 148 Studios or 148 Studios here in beautiful Chattanooga. What a great space. Like, they've got such a great studio here if you're doing still photography or, you know, any kind of editorial print shoots. They've got a beautiful psych. This is definitely a high-end place where you can do any kind of product commercials, or they'll just do a full package deal and let you rent the whole place out for the day or the week, whatever.
Yeah.
Or they'll go out in the field for you and shoot your real estate or, you know, shoot a commercial for you. They're really great people. Glad we met.
Yeah, so thanks to the guys at 148 Studios for letting us kick it in here for this. So we got kind of a special one for you guys. This is a little bit different format from normal. We're going to be doing kind of a two-part series here. We're going to be talking about two I'm going to call them both iconic albums.
Oh, absolutely.
One newer than the other, but there are some really big ties that I think kind of bring these two albums to where like they're very similar and like the implications around the band and stuff like that. More of what we're going to get to as we dig in deeper on the two. So one of them you're going to see is Back in Black by AC/DC. This is like one of my top 5 favorite albums. It was one of those that, you know, as a adolescent, I guess, that I just fell in love with. But we were going to dive more into that. And then the other one, should we show them now, Phil?
Yeah, I would. I wouldn't hold back.
So the other is the newest album, From Zero, by Linkin Park. And some of you may be, you know, kind of scratching your heads and thinking like, what could be similar about these two albums? But I think there's some really cool ties that you're going to see between these two albums. So you're going to get a part 1 and a part 2. Part 1 is going to be AC/DC, Back in Black, which Phil has in his hands there. The second one will be From Zero by Linkin Park. And you will have to wait till the end of the second one to kind of just hear and see what those ties are between the two. But before we get too far into it, we want to take a moment and thank a couple of sponsors of the show. So we will be back in a couple. Judged by the Cover is brought to you by JW Creates. JW Creates is your local graphic design source that specializes in cover art, logos, and websites for bands, musicians, podcasters, small business, and solo entrepreneurs. I love to hear your story and to help bring it to life through the art of graphic design. To learn more and connect with me, go to jwcreates.com, check out my work, and use the form at the bottom to tell me more about your project. Let's work together to bring your story to life through the art of graphic design. We want to take a minute and say a huge thank you to our new friends over at 148 Studios and 148 Films right here in Chattanooga. 148 Films is your local professional film studio. They have a whole professional studio for the film side. They also have the tools and the crew to go into the field, to your office, to your space, to create professional content for you and your business. They also have an amazing podcast studio. So what you're seeing in this episode, this is 148 Studios podcast room. So they have professional lighting, they have professional cameras. Daniel was the man. He took care of us and made sure everything was right. So if you are a local podcaster, if you're a content creator, if you're a business and you're needing help creating content, whether that's video or through podcasts, check out 148films.com or hit them up on Facebook and Instagram. That's by searching 148 Films. On Instagram, it's 148_films. Check them out. See their amazing work. Go work with them. I promise you it'll be an amazing experience. And let them know that the guys from Judged by the Cover say hey. So AC/DC, Back in Black, it is possibly one of the most iconic hard rock albums ever.
Yeah.
It could be one of the biggest ones that didn't win a Grammy. Maybe more to follow on that.
Mind-boggling.
But Phil has done a little deep dive on like the early years of AC/DC, kind of the lead up to this album. So what do you got for us, Phil? Give us a little history.
Yeah, so to go before Back in Black, which came out in 1980, the band frontman was Bon Scott, and these guys were probably active mid 70s down in Australia. They formed two brothers, Angus and his brother Malcolm, and then they've got a great drummer. I believe his name is Phil, and
I think you're right.
Just putting together really what they were influenced by was like Chuck Berry, 1950s early rock and roll and the blues, and just they were just like raw talent. Like they really did earn their stripes. They came up through the clubs. They learned how to play, and they put out multiple albums well before this ever came to light, and that's totally unheard of in this day and age, where I don't think you get that chance so much anymore.
No, because streaming and everything is so single based. But yeah, I noticed that. I was gonna go back and count, but like there were a ton of albums that came out before this, and I believe they officially formed in like 73, but their first album came out in 76.
Yeah,
and there was like 4, 5
to 6
this
albums. May be like the 6th album, and this thing just monster hit.
Yeah.
But it is shrouded in black because, as we know, black is a symbol of mourning. So Bon Scott was an absolute artist. And I think what I learned in this little deep dive that I did, and I love the documentaries, and you can certainly find them. I love to go to Prime. Prime really does have like the best, and they're often free. I think maybe I paid 99 cents for one that was so good.
Yeah, what was the name of that? Do you remember?
It was just called AC/DC, the Bon Scott years, and it's on Prime, and it's such a good watch, and it's so well produced, and a lot of experts down in Australia and England. People, one of the engineers who actually engineered this album at Compass Point in Nassau, Bahamas, which is a legendary studio, but Bon Scott just resonated with the locals in Australia because he was just like an everyman. He wouldn't wear a shirt during the gigs. He had tattoos, and he was writing from the heart, and people just, the common working guy,
like the
really.
Blue collar guy, like that's who
my
they
guy.
were. Yeah, that's kind of their audience.
Yeah,
right?
and there were other musical genres at the time, and disco was kind of looming on the horizon, and I think the big thing for AC/DC is you always knew what you were going to get with AC/DC. You're going to get rock and roll.
Yep.
You're just going to get hard rock.
Yep.
And they were always going to do just 10 tracks. There aren't a lot when they do these reissues. There aren't like, all these other extra tracks that come from the vault. No, they went in. These are the 10 best tracks they did at Compass Point, and as they say, all killer, no filler.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, AC/DC, they are just amps cranked to 11, rock and roll.
I love that. I mean, I don't know if it was my favorite band growing up, but I'm definitely the MTV generation. MTV launched like August 1st, 1981. This record came out in 1980.
The year before, yeah.
But I'm telling you, it's perfect timing because, let's just go back a tick. Bon Scott tragically died from alcohol poisoning in 1980, February 1980. He did not sing on this album. This album is his, a nod to him by the new band. So he passes away tragically February 1980. They bury him. He dies in London, sadly. They cremated him, sent him back to Australia, buried him to proper, laid him to rest. And then the band's like, now what are we going to do? They could have ended it there, or with Bon Scott's mother's blessing, she's like, guys, man, he would want you to continue.
Yeah.
They auditioned new singers. And they found this guy named freaking Brian Johnson.
Brian Johnson.
From a band called Geordie.
Yeah.
And they did audition other vocalists, but he got the call back, and he's just got like that crazy Hellraiser voice.
Yep.
And they laid this down, and I think it's a great tribute. It's a great, hey, we're remembering Bon Scott, but we are carrying on, and this is their new delivery system of this is the new AC/DC. And that's really when guys like me and you were like, oh, this is the AC/DC I know with Brian, the vocalist, and not Bon Scott. Because I didn't know, even my wife, she was watching a lot of this stuff with me, these documentaries. She's
really?
Like, I don't even remember that guy, Bon Scott. It's like, yeah, you wouldn't really, because way before MTV.
Because vocally, they're similar. Obviously, there is differences between the two, but yeah. And I don't know, how accurate this is, but I did see where they said that Bon Scott had actually seen Brian, gosh dang it, Brian Johnson, singing in his other band, that Geordie band.
Probably.
And kind of, at least enjoyed him or liked him. So there's kind of a nod that like, hey, at least I like this dude. So they kind of knew that, there was a little bit there, but very tragic. And it's crazy. Like they kind of had that decision, right? Like, what do we do? Like, do we try and continue to make music? Can we make music without Bon? And so they obviously decided like, hey, to kind of like a therapy kind of thing. They're like, let's just get into the studio and let's just write music.
Yeah.
And so, that's got to be super hard to have to do, figure that out.
They made art. I mean, it's such a solid. You have to listen to this record. It's so good.
Yeah, it's a little crazy to me, like how quickly that turned around, because you said it was like February.
He died in February 1980, and then they did this record inside of 2 months in the Bahamas. They were going to do it in London, but there was no studio space available.
Yeah.
And then they got like a bit of a tax break doing it down in the UK. I mean, down in Bahamas, which is, I think, is somehow affiliated with Britain, right? That's part of the British Empire.
Yeah.
But they went down there and they knocked, because they like to work fast, and I appreciate that. They're not going to spend like 7 years on a record. And they were working with Mutt Lange. Mutt Lange, obviously a huge producer for Def Leppard. Mutt Lange did Shania Twain's breakthrough albums, was married to Shania for a while. So Mutt Lange is just a great producer. And he really cleaned up. Mutt did the record before this one, and what he does is he really kind of just synthesizes what each band member's doing and makes a great sonic painting, for lack of a better analogy. But man, they just work so fast on this, and inside of 2 months it's done.
And one thing I had also read just about the band in general, like when they get into a studio, they may sit around and drink coffee and smoke cigarettes for 2 hours before they even start recording, but it's like when they actually start recording, they just knock it out and get it done. Like 1 or 2 takes, maybe, just knock it out.
Because they were so good. I mean, they've been together forever. They've been touring incessantly.
Yeah.
And when a band does that, your chops are so good. You get in the studio, you are getting it down in 1 or 2 takes. You're like, this is it. These guys can play. They're monster players.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, and it's really cool. All the writing credits are Young, and Johnson.
Yeah.
And really, Malcolm and Angus, they do all like kind of the music side of it, and when it came to the lyrics, they basically gave him free reign.
They did.
So that was kind of cool, especially him coming in fresh, new, to have kind of that pressure of having to like, okay, I'm the new voice of AC/DC, and having to, I read that there was a lot of pressure on him because he's like, what if people hate us now?
Yeah.
Because of me.
The one tidbit that I got from the documentary is like they wanted him to go full tilt. Like there ain't no ballads on this thing. Like
there's not.
There's nothing really down tempo on this.
Yeah.
We want you to sing the hell out of this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, another just cool thing, the last, or I guess and that's weird. It's not showing as the last one on here, but Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution.
Yeah.
The track listing on this one is weird, which we may talk about.
Yeah.
But Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution, I believe, is the last track that's supposed to be on the album. There's a part at the beginning, and in the studio, they asked him, like, hey, can you talk over this part? And so he just wings it.
Yeah.
And it actually made the final... It made the track. So what you hear at the beginning of that song, he's winging it. Like you can even hear like he just set his cigarette down and he just starts rambling on. But yeah. So yeah, there's just a lot before this, a lot going into it. New singer, band trying to figure out like how do we, where do we go from here? And just a monster album.
Yeah.
Since this is a show about cover art, Phil, let's dive into it a little bit. So, Back in Black, it is an ode to Bon Scott, and the band initially they just wanted it to be black. They didn't want anything on the cover because I think you may have even mentioned this already. Black is the universal sign of mourning, but they just wanted it to be black. And if there was going to be text, they just wanted it to be embossed.
Right.
They didn't want anything else on there. Obviously, the record label didn't like that idea. And, creative departments were like, you got to have your name on there. And you got
It's hard to sell a black square.
It's hard to sell a black square. But, it's AC/DC, though.
I know.
AC/DC could probably sell a black square. Definitely now. But it may have been different then. But I don't know, man. They were...
I think they could have done it if it was a purple square. It really, because the songs are so good. Somehow the word gets out on the street. This is a new AC/DC record. Yeah. The concession they had to make was the label Atlantic wanted them to put this white outline at least around the band name AC/DC, and they did it. And I get it for visibility. Yeah, it's interesting. Like that was the compromise.
Yeah, and I think it was initially going to be white, and they ended up with a very thin silver around AC/DC. But on this vinyl, this version here, which shout out to my boy Scott at Retro Vinyl
Vinyl, baby.
I put him on the hunt. I'm like, if you can find me a decent, it didn't even have to be a nice, but if you can find me a decent Back in Black on vinyl, you would be my hero.
Yeah.
He had a copy that didn't have a sleeve. And then he found me this one that has both the vinyl and the sleeve. So shout out, Scott. Thank you very much. I love this. Thank you. But yeah, Back in Black is embossed.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty nice touch. On the CD versions and everything like that, it's white. Or it's this kind of silvery white color.
Yeah.
But I will say, I'm going to give it to the label a little bit. This is so iconic.
Yeah.
With that simple silver outline, I do love the band's wishes for it to just be all black, but the silver outlined AC/DC, just this album,
that's tasteful.
I love it, tasteful. Man.
It is a classic. I mean,
and their logo, dude, I love it. It's 100% them. So yeah, just
another crazy thing, just from getting into this, the band Motorhead.
Yeah.
Okay, so Motorhead, when they were setting up their arena shows, they would pipe this album through their sound system to check the acoustics of the venue. Yeah. And they're not the only band. There was another band that did that. A lot of people were running this through the front of house to make sure the levels are good based on this album. I mean, that says a lot.
Yeah, producers.
Nashville Studios did the same thing.
Yep,
in the rooms.
Yeah, big iconic studios, producers. Yeah, they use this to sound check and make sure that everything is right. And again, that just goes down to how much effort was put into the making of this record.
Yeah. And, there were two different writing. I know we're talking about album art, but the writing styles, Bon Scott was very autobiographical, writing about his escapades. And, look, let's just be real. I mean, it's just a straight up rock and roll band. Okay, so we're not they're not going to get into politics, and
you're getting a lot of sex, drugs, and rock and
that's
roll.
Pretty much
that's what you're getting with AC/DC.
And a lot of the hardcore fans know that Brian Johnson has a different writing style. There are some tidbits you get in the documentaries where, the engineer says, well, hey, I helped out with this lyric, doing double time on the seduction line on the track, Shook Me All Night Long.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's cool. I mean, it's a collaborative process, and I think it's great. If you have a great line, you'd be foolish not to take, the engineer's awesome line.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so much detail went into the making of this.
Yeah, and there's definitely some controversy around it too. Like, I know that there are people that were close to Bond that said that he wrote the majority of "You Shook Me All Night Long."
Yeah,
even though the band has basically held that he didn't.
Yeah, and Brian Johnson's memoirs, he's like, nope, I wrote everything. I was behind the pen.
Yeah. So there is a little controversy behind it, but I think that's just going to be something that comes about when you have a changeover like this. And, I'm sure, I don't know, I'm sure there's people that felt like they kind of got left behind because they no longer had that connection to the band.
Yeah.
Does that even make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, it does. I mean, there's always going to be a shift. Oh gosh, I really liked this band on their first 2 albums, and then I gave up on them. I mean, I don't know, that it happens.
Yeah.
But they're artists. I think you have to let artists try different things and be willing to kind of go down that road with them. And
yeah.
But yeah, what an icon. I mean, that's it, man. Some of the diehard fans say this is the best it's ever going to get for AC/DC. Like, they won the Grammy in, like, what year was that?
I think you said it 2010. I think is
2010. And for a song like have you ever heard of that song?
So I know of the album. It was the Black Ice album. Is that correct?
I think so.
So this is a total tangent, but it's kind of a fun story. I had an opportunity to go see them during that tour, like 2008, 2009.
Really?
I had a buddy who he got a ticket. I don't know if his dad was taking him or something like that, but he knew I was an AC/DC fan. He's like, hey, man, tickets are like $100. Do you want to go with me? I was so broke as a college student. I couldn't even come up with $100.
You know how cheap that is now to see a band like that? That's like $10.
That ticket's probably like $300 these days. So that's maybe my one AC/DC regret. But yeah, it was from that album. That's where they won the one Grammy.
Yeah.
If I remember right, I think this one hit number 2 on the charts in the U.S. I think it did chart number 1 in Australia and stuff like that.
Oh, it definitely peaked, and it was just certified like 27 times platinum last year. Like certified RIAA. Yeah,
so overall, songwriting, the cover, it's 10 out of 10.
Yeah, it's so fun to listen to. Like, I kind of forgot, like, it was the soundtrack of my high school days. I mean, that with Van Halen and, so many of those other hard... this is like a metal album that was classified as metal back then. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I would just say hard rock, but I don't know about metal, but I guess.
That was kind of metal, yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't a Metallica when it came out, right? When did Metallica get on the scene?
Wasn't it like in the 90s? I'm pretty sure Metallica really, it may have been a little early, but like 90s was their heyday.
Yeah. But they, AC/DC certainly paved the way for, like Metallica.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just great. And then, obviously then when MTV came out, they were everywhere on MTV.
Yeah. So, as far as this album goes, if I, we usually like to give younger artists out there some tips on cover art when it comes to this thing. Like, what can we learn from the people that paved the way? And one thing I would say is... I'm going to stand up for the label a little bit on this one, which is crazy. But, I do think AC/DC could have sold a black square or a purple square or whatever.
Yeah.
But there is just something very iconic to the simplicity of this, right?
Agreed.
I mean, they have probably sold 1 million T-shirts just with that simple outline AC/DC.
I want that T-shirt now. It's cool.
Dude, I had the AC/DC shirt with this, and I wore that thing out like there were holes wearing into it.
You just need that in a black leather jacket, and you're good to go.
100%. There's nothing more rock and roll than that. But yeah, don't be afraid to even if you want to do something like very simple, like if you have an iconic brand, or if you have something that like really stands about who you are, whether that's a logo or the name of your band or whatever it is, if you can come up with just a very simple but striking, I guess, icon of who you are, throw that bad boy on there. Don't leave it off. And then if you do make physicals, then you can make your decision if you want to just have stuff embossed and stuff like that. But yeah, don't hide that, like those branding pieces, because that is important.
And like we've said before, it's like, really think about it. Like, I think that's part of the fun of being in a band is when you get, obviously you're striving to write the best songs you can ever write. Right. But when you get to the point of like, okay, now we need the artwork and the graphic design and layout work. I mean, I think that was the most fun aspect for me when we were making physicals. Even now with the digital stuff, you really want to think about it. Like, that's a fun part of it for me. Like, it is still part of like the songwriting process. Yeah. Because you want the world to hear your work. So you might as well invest the time and the money in like the best photographer, the best graphic designer, and then just spitball as a band or a duo and just be like, man, what could we do? And who are my influences art-wise for album art? There's so much out there to like study.
Yeah. Yeah. And, if you are working with like a professional, like JW Creates, they're going to do a good job of knowing like, hey, what pieces of information do I need to gather from your music, from your song, from your personalities that's going to best tell the story of your album or song. Yeah. So that way it is, going to be lasting. And I saw crazy statistics, and I wish I remembered the specifics to it, but there was 1 month in 2024 that there was more music released than in the year 1989.
I think you sent me that stat. Yeah.
Like on Instagram or something like that.
That's insane.
That's a crazy stat.
Because back in the day when the CD was, early, it was a huge deal to have a CD, to put a CD out.
Yeah. Yeah. And so just think, if there's that much music being put out in a single month in today's music world, like, how are you going to stand out? Yeah. And cover art's going to be a big piece of that. Good music will sell, but like if it's not catching people's attention, if they're going to a playlist, if they're scrolling through something, scrolling through Instagram, if it's not catching their attention, like that personal branding piece around your music, around your song, if that's not catching their attention, I mean, you're just kind of lost in a sea of music a lot of times.
And can you tour for a year? They were on the road. Yeah. Around the world for a solid year for this album. Oh, and then they were a monster touring band during the Bon Scott years, like just nonstop going for it,
Yeah, just looking at their discography was just mind blowing to me because, like, I know, and I will say, there are a lot of AC/DC albums where there's like 2 or 3 good songs, and then the rest, it's like I could give or take. They're not all this. I mean, to have an album like this, just in general, for any artist, that like every song pretty much is a hit, is really hard. So obviously this is a lightning strike.
But they did have the opportunity to make like up to 6 records before this hit. Yeah, obviously with a brand new singer.
Yeah. Yeah, so
that doesn't really. I don't know if that happens anymore. Like, are the young bands doing like, oh, we're on our 4th record? I mean, it's so hard. You get that opportunity to make that first one, and you're super lucky if you get to make that sophomore.
Yeah, album. So it's just like you put all of your energy into those first 1 or 2. Like, how do you have the energy to continue on to make a monster like this? Yeah. But anyway, we digress.
We do digress.
Any other final thoughts on Back in Black?
I just think it's amazing that all these decades later, this is still like something you're going to buy for a Christmas gift. You're going to have it in your collection. You're going to seek out Scott at Retro Vinyl to find you a copy. Yep. It's just like incredible how that's what I love about records. It's like this is the moment they laid it down in the Bahamas and we get to have this piece and it sounds sonically it's a time capsule and it's sonically perfect. Yeah. I mean, my hat's off to him. It's incredible. I love it. I loved getting back into this album. It's awesome.
Yeah, and if you haven't listened to this full album or just like, maybe never listened to AC/DC, give it a listen. There's a lot of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, so be prepared. But it's from front to back. It is very, very.
But it's not
solid.
in your face, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You know, it's like the whole double entendre.
It's very cheeky.
Yeah,
I think
it is.
There's some how they put it.
Humor. Yeah, it's cheeky. It's a bit cheeky.
Yeah, it kind of is in your face.
Yeah, it is a little bit. I don't know. It's probably tame in this, in the culture now.
Phil, that's a whole nother conversation.
That is a whole other conversation.
Well, hey, if you are working on a music project and you need some help with visual identity, whether that is album or single cover design, if it's logos, if it's graphic design of all sorts, or website, I'd love to help you out. JWCreates.com is where you can find me, and just connect with me. Let me hear about your project. I can tell you how I work and how I can help you. And one of my favorite things is bringing stuff like this to life digitally. I love it.
Yeah.
And so I would love to hear about your project and work with you. If you have any thoughts for the show or suggestions for albums that we should talk about, you can also hit me up at that website. You can also send us an email. That's info@jwcreates.com, or on Facebook and Instagram it's at JDubCreates. We'd love to hear your suggestions. So, part 1, AC/DC Back in Black.
Yeah.
You're probably, some of y'all may know, but you're probably like, how does this tie to From Zero, Linkin Park? Find out in episode 2. That is coming up next. But for now, thanks for checking it out. Thank you, Phil, for bringing your expertise today.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
See you guys.